Good morning and welcome to World Literature Today. We're broadcasting here from the University of Oklahoma this morning, and I'm with my colleague Rob Vollmar, who is the book review editor for WLT, and my name is Daniel Simon, and I'm the editor-in-chief. And Rob, would you like to tell people how they can share questions and comments with us as we're getting into our discussion this morning?
Sure. So just in the area right down below, of course, you have the reaction buttons. So you can give us a thumbs up or a heart, or if Daniel says something that upsets you, you can put one of those angry faces. You can also please leave comments or questions. In the space down below the event, we have the lovely Marilyn Bell, who is monitoring the event and will be passing those along to us. So we look forward to your feedback and responses.
I should show our readers and our viewers our current issue, which is really the focus of what we're talking about today. It's the January issue of World Literature Today, and we have Dubravka Ugrešić on the cover. She's the laureate of the 2016 Neustadt International Prize for Literature. She was here last October on campus, and inside the whole cover feature is devoted to her life and work with the keynote talk that she gave here in Oklahoma last fall. And as well, there are a couple of pieces about her work and the context in which she is such a prominent writer on the contemporary European scene today. So that's really what we're here to kind of focus on, and we'll just jump right in. So
this issue was especially exciting for us because it features interviews with two very prominent Anglophone writers. The first one that we'd like to talk with you about is an extensive interview with poet and translator Carolyn Forché. Dana, would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Forché also was a nominee or a finalist for the Neustadt Prize last year, and Charles de Nord contacted us about a new interview that he'd been conducting with her all year long last year on 3 different occasions, and it was a 30,000 word interview, so we decided to break it up into 3 parts, and part 1 is in the issue, and you can read parts 2 and 3 on our website. And actually part 1 and the whole issue is online, so you can always go there to worldlit.org and find everything there in our digital edition. Forché's work is really best known for, she's done some incredible anthologies called, one is called Against Forgetting, and she's known for sort of compiling this genre known as the poetry of witness. And she articulates this middle space, this social space between the exclusively personal poem and the exclusively political poem for what she calls the poetry of witness. And she really talks about our ethical responsibility as writers and readers to each other to document and to be aware of all of the things that have happened around the world throughout our history, but also in the present day in terms of what we should be focusing on, and not just things that are sort of passing news. So there are 5 brand new poems by Forché in the issue as well, very powerful poems, and so you can check those out as well. And really it's really kind of a career spanning statement for her in terms of what the importance of her work as an editor, as a translator, and as a poet in the US and really on the world stage.
Yeah. It's a really interesting interview also because it's a very conversational interview where there's lots of back and forth between her and the interviewer, and I learned a lot about her work and kind of how she's positioned among the late 20th century or early 21st century poets.
Indeed. We also have the Alan Moore interview, which Rob conducted late last year with from our offices here at WLT, and Rob, I know you've been reading Moore's work for a few decades now, and he's especially known for his graphic fiction, but he also has a new novel called Jerusalem that you wanted to focus on in this interview in particular. You want to tell us about your experience with him?
Sure. So Jerusalem is about a 1,300 page novel. I got access to the advanced reader's copy about a month before the interview, which was facilitated by Alan's daughter, Leah. So shout out to Leah. Thank you so much for your help in securing that for us. It was definitely a sprint in terms of making my way through the novel in preparation for the interview. As a kind of a multiple decade scholar of Moore's work. I found myself right at home because it was really a kind of a maximalist expression of themes that have been evident in his work throughout his entire career. I spoke with him for about 2 hours on the phone. It was an amazing conversation. Unlike the Forché interview, which is very conversational, I mostly just listened because he's an incredible mind, an incredible writer, and really had a lot to say. The total interview came out to about 9,000 words. We printed about 3,000 of those in the issue, focused specifically on Jerusalem. And then we published an addendum in January that focused more on kind of the politics of now and how he sees that the political landscape has changed over the last, do the math on that, about the last 50 years or so. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely a high point of my time in studying comics and interviewing people associated with it. It's a really fantastic novel. We have a review also of Jerusalem in this issue, written by Michael Kazepis, who is the author of the Long Lost Dog of it from Broken River Books. Having read the novel myself, I felt like Michael did an exceptional job of distilling what makes it unique among Moore's works, but also as a distilled expression of all of the things he's been dealing with in his career.
Isn't there like a huge response to the online version of his online interview on our website? It seemed like we got like the most visitors ever on our site last month.
We had more than 10,000 people view the interview on the website, which was a pretty remarkable achievement. I think some of that was the timing of the publication, but and also Mr. Moore just has an exceptionally engaged base of admirers. And people who are interested in his work, so that was a big deal. There's also a short piece that I wrote as a sidebar in the interview of his spoken word albums, which is something that even people who are familiar with Alan Moore's work are not as familiar with his spoken word records. So, so that's available both in the magazine and online at worldlit.org. Now we also, in the issue, have the regular complement of outstanding fiction and poetry from all over the world. Daniel, would you like to tell us a little bit about some of that?
Sure. Every issue is full of poetry and fiction and essays, short stories and essays, as well as book reviews and interviews. And one of the authors that we have a special focus on in the January issue is Nadia Villafuerte. She's a Mexican writer who actually visited the University of Oklahoma last fall as part of the OU Humanities Forum. She was a guest of the forum, and while she was here, she did an interview in Spanish with Julianne Ward, who also translated the story that Nadia has in the current issue, and it's called Cosmo Girl, and it's a look at what immigrants and refugees from Central America experience as they're coming up through southern Mexico, and they ride this train. Many of them, it's called La Bestia, the beast, and the hardships that they go through as they're coming through very harsh territory and under very difficult circumstances. Obviously, coming from their home countries and trying to get through even to Mexico or to the United States. So it's an important look via fictional lens, but there's also a note by Julianne Ward at the front of the issue. It's our feature called the Translators Note. It's always in the notebook section of every issue, and Julianne talks a little bit about the actual politics and the history and a little bit of everything going on behind the scenes in the story that it refers to. So Villafuerte's work is also one of the key portfolios in the new issue of Latin American Literature Today, which just launched last week. It's a brand new digital, it's a web-only journal that comes out 4 times a year. It's headquartered here at the University of Oklahoma. Marcelo Rioseco is the editor-in-chief, and he has a team of collaborators among the faculty here in the Modern Languages Department, as well as students who are working very closely with him and an extensive network of contributors from throughout Latin America and the United States. So the idea for that is to really present all of this content in a bilingual format. And so you can go read 4 different stories by Villafuerte in Spanish and English. You just toggle back and forth between them. There's a second interview that Arthur Dixon did with her when she was here, as well as a book review of some of her work. So that's one of these supplemental. One of these great new ventures here at OU that's kind of an extension of what World Literature Today is, but focused on the Spanish language populations of the Americas. And so we've done this in China, now we're doing it in Latin America with our colleagues here at OU. And it's really kind of an exciting opportunity for folks to read some of this work, both in Spanish and English, and you can check out their website. It's LatinAmericanLiteratureToday.org, and they have a Facebook presence as well as Twitter.
So go and hit the like button ASAP for LALT.
And Rob, what else would you like to say about the online presence of WLT this past month on our blog? We've had some popular pieces. Do you want to say a little bit about?
Well, of course, both of the extensions of the Forché interview, and then of course the addendum of the Almore interview. Another big piece has been our managing editor Michelle Johnson's 75 notable translations. That's a really valuable list for people who are interested in translated work, and so you can go, and I'm sure that you'll find works on there that you're not familiar with, and so it's kind of just a good list to go through and see what you're aware of and what you've missed, and definitely check out the works that are on there.
There's one other post that was really in our top 10 this past month, and it's by David Williams, who is Dubravka Ugresic's principal translator for Open Letter Books. There's several of her novels and her essay collections that are featured in their catalog, and David talks a little bit about the struggles of being a translator and trying to survive on freelance work as a translator, and it's really kind of a heartbreaking piece, and it got a lot of response from translators out there and readers and writers who empathize with the difficulties of being kind of like the beggars at the church doors is one of the famous ways that translators have been characterized, that they do this vital cultural work but aren't often recognized for it, and of course not also well paid for it. So it's something that we try to help out here by paying translators as much as we pay writers when we're commissioning work for the pages of WLT. So that's an important piece to look for. And then also we got a comment, not only lots of comments on Moore's interview, but on Carolyn Forché's interview. Just the other day, a poet and translator wrote to me about reading Forché's interview, and she said, this is Rachel Zviabak, she's an Israeli poet, and she was in the army when she was younger, and she had in her backpack a copy of Forché's book, The Country Between Us, and she writes about reading those poems at night after her work was done, and she talked about reconnecting to something that was true and transcendent in those moments of reading her poetry. And now with this interview, she called it extraordinary and tremendously important on so many levels. So do check out these great interviews in the new issue, and anything else that piques your interest. We hope you find it in your local bookstore, or if you're not a subscriber, you can go online and check us out.
We also got a good response from Thomas Mihalich Morissette on the Alan Moore interview. He said that he really liked that we just let him say what he had to say without sticking to the questions too much. It was kind of a funny experience because I actually had a very extensive list of questions written out to sort of keep the conversation going, and Alan invariably answered the questions that I had set up before I really ever had a chance to. So as we were talking, I would ask one question, and he would be talking, and then I would be like, okay, and okay, and okay, and just sort of marking those questions off as not really necessary to ask. As I mentioned before, it was a pretty amazing experience for me just to be able to sit and listen to him. I mentioned the spoken word albums, which I've listened to pretty extensively, and so I was very sort of familiar with his voice and the cadences and all of those things. But there was something I don't know, kind of magical about when he was talking to me as opposed to talking at me, that I'll never forget about that interview. So thank you, Thomas, for your kind words about the interview.
Thank you all for joining us this morning. I think we'll wrap it up here, and thank you for all of your likes on Facebook and our Twitter followers and everywhere else on social media where we can be found. Shout out to Gail Peters. Thanks for sharing on Facebook this morning and giving us a thumbs up. And thank you again to all of you. Go to worldlit.org, find out more about the issue and WLT, and thank you for joining us. Rob, any final comments?
I really appreciate all of you taking the time to watch the video. As Daniel said, go to the website worldlit.org and pay special attention to the book review section because we work real hard. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.